If you're like me and you love the Ronbus Ripple, you're going to love this video. I'm going to go through several alternatives that are USAP approved. I'm going to start with the innovations in foam, since the Ripple is a foam paddle, and begin with the Gearbox Hyper. And I did get to play with this a while back. I played mixed at Worlds with John Q, and he had worked in his paddle and had it weighted up. And when I hit it, I thought, wow, this is fantastic. This is a gearbox with a sweet spot that I can hit. And so I couldn't wait to get my own. But I have yet to work my paddle in the same way or get the same feel that I felt when hitting his. I'm still working on that, but I would say it does need to be weighted and worked in. It does, if when worked in, it's very plush and it has that nice foam feel. So if that's what you're after, what you love about the idea of the Ripple, it does have a static weight of 8.3 and a swing weight of 123. So that's kind of high. And I did choose the Gearbox Pro Ultimate Hyper because there really isn't a hybrid comparison for the Ripple, and the elongateds are just not at all a good comparison. So it does have amazing drive power and plow through once worked in. So not as much pop. We'll look at the end. I'll share some pop and power charts to sort of make a point. So if you're really interested in which of these paddles has the most power and the most pop, we'll discuss. But a twist weight of 7.39, still I find this challenging in terms of the sweet spot and being able to connect and get the feel of this paddle, I guess. But if you're looking for the dense foam feel, this is the one. I would say go to Daniel Hawk at houseofpickle.shop for this. He can probably get you the best deal, and you can use my code DRPRICE. Okay, the next option, and that's foam, and it just leans power, I guess you'd say, is as everyone has been waiting forever and now loving, the TruFoam. And I did play with both the 1 and the 3, and I would say this is obviously the best comparison to the Ripple in terms of maneuverability. The price is $280. Again, with my code at Carbon, you can get this for $252 using DRPRICE. It's an impressive innovation in general. I'm just thrilled with the idea that they've created something that won't core crush. The problem with the 1 and the 3, even as John said in his review, he described them as a bit sluggish, was his term, which kind of made me giggle. But they don't have a true hybrid yet, so the 2 is the best comparison maybe for a Ripple. Mine came in at a static weight of 8 with a swing weight of 119, so not as maneuverable probably as a Ripple. Great twist weight though, 7.63, super stable, good sweet spot. It does have a different, it's dense, but it's not a plush dense like the Ripple. So it does have a foam, but you know, this surfboard foam isn't the same as the EVA and the foam that is absorbing the ball like the Ripple does. I will say the power does feel pretty linear, and I did love that Braden's Aaron, the editor, did a little take on the 11.624 power paddles, and he did discuss this idea of platform dwell versus isolated dwell. And I would say this is a good example of it. Has great platform dwell and great isolated dwell. So you get incredible spin off of these, which is really nice. And it's just super popular, probably because it's just very predictable, very linear, great solid plow through. And then good touch too once you get used to it. It just has a different feel. But people like Chris Olsen, I believe, is still maining this, and Braden from Pickleball Effect as well. So again, $280 at Carbon with the code DRPRICE is $252. Okay, so those were the foam options. Now we're going to move into what I think are the more exciting things in comparison, and these are the 16mm Gen 3s. So I'm going to start with, and I chose the J2ti instead of the J2K, very similar. This one probably not quite as powerful as what I'm hearing, but I love the TI or the PET in terms of the grip, and the grit on this paddle is fantastic as well. So isolated dwell and minimal platform dwell on this paddle. It's very crisp, so if you like a crisp feel, it's also, and I should have said, dual edge foam peninsula, so it is a floating Gen 3 diving board, but you don't feel it. So my thought about this paddle is, if you're reluctant about a Gen 3 and you're worried about the exponential power, it just doesn't feel as loose in here. So you're not getting that diving board effect. It's almost, my playtester sort of passed it over in the first couple days, partly because it feels so Gen 2-ish, Gen 2 thermoformed, and less like a Gen 3. But it has worked in a little, and it does have a little weight. So I would say, you know, give it a few days. In fact, every paddle I'm going to talk about now, Gen 3, I would say play 4 to 6 hours before you develop an opinion. Even when people say, oh, they don't take work in, they really do. They become a different paddle after a couple days, I think, at least in my experience with these, especially with multiple play testers playing with them. So static weight of 8.2 for this one, a swing weight of 114, and just by adding 2 grams and changing the sweet spot at 4 and 8, adding 2 grams, I got a swing weight of 119, and the twist weight went up from 7.1 to 7.85. So you basically put a little bit of weight on this and you can't miss. So I'll try to include some video to show you. I mean, this is, they're going to say now when the mod and the PPEs are sunset, so to speak, that this really just touches the edge of power, but I think it's gonna land solidly in power. Definitely the J2K Plus will. But you'll see, I'll try to put in some video. I was traveling I'm at the beach this week, and so I traveled through Atlanta and got to play with a couple people that I hadn't played with before, one of which was playing with this paddle. His name was Sang. I'll see if I can get some video up of him. But wow, he had said he had given up the Olympus, which we'll talk about in a second, and his Pulse S, I believe it was, and chose this for the power and the spin that he was getting. And boy, his drives were just quite impressive. You'll see, again, I think it's a subtle platform dwell, the sinking of the ball into the face of this, and the Gen 3 core, that's, you know, propulsion. The propulsion isn't obvious, but it's there, and it gives great dwell and great grab, great grit and grab on this paddle as well. So highly recommend this one, and especially if you were tentative about a Gen 3, they also have the refresh program, and you can use my code at Honolulu DRPRICE to take this from 165 to 145. And then if you use the refresh program, which is kind of a neat thing, yeah, I think you get another paddle or 2 for the price of 1, which is a neat thing that they're doing, kind of to make up for the idea that these Gen 3s are sort of have a break-in period and then a breakdown period, I guess is what they're saying. All right, the one that everybody has been talking about and is so excited about, another 16 millimeter. It is the Vapor Power Hybrid. It comes in at $170 with my code DRPRICE at 11624. It comes down to, I think, like $153. But I just want to say about this sold out in 2 minutes for a reason. David just seemed to go to great lengths to create a durable Gen 3. So when you look at Dustin and John Q's dissections, you'll see he used special thick core cells. His EVA foam is thick, and I think there's a couple other special things about this, one of which is all the Gen 3s that we'll talk about have peninsula diving board type foam, and this is a true trampoline where his foam goes all the way around, which makes it similar to the Ripple in the sense that you get a true trampoline effect in terms of the Gen 3 nature of this. So durable, fiberglass also making this different. So it makes it a little more powerful. I think it does have a crisp sort of feel. There's maybe a minimal moment where you feel like, okay, this has a bit of a Yola-ish hollow feel, but not really, not as obvious. Mine came in at a static weight of 8.3, which is kind of heavy for a hybrid, and a swing weight of 120. It doesn't really feel so heavy, but it isn't quite as maneuverable as a Ripple if that's what you're looking for. But wow, talk about a sweet spot. I mean, amazing. My stock twist weight on this was 7.73, and I haven't added weight because I haven't felt like it needs weight. So my playtesters love this, and I'll try to get in some extra video on that if I can, but it's going to be near the higher end of the power spectrum, I think, once these paddles like the Mod and the Gearbox PPEs are sunset. I did have like these moments of, ooh, I could name this because it feels so good, and it's got quite a bit of power and good touch too, but I feel like it's controversial to say this. I think Braden said it's the people's power paddle or something like that. I'm not sure I'd completely recommend this as like a first power paddle for somebody, only because I think the fiberglass does complicate things a little bit. And there were moments where I had to think about when is the fiberglass going to kick in and how hard can I hit the ball. There was just a minimal adjustment, but wow. I could definitely, if I just focused and wasn't playing with 5 different paddles at a time, easily hone in on this and figure it out. And I played wonderfully with it even while play testing 7 different paddles. So it's a special paddle. Again, 170, 153 with code. Wow, it is definitely a great deal for what you're getting here. Okay. So now I know a lot of people are going to be excited more so about the 14 millimeters. So those were 16. And if you liked the Ripple for the maneuverability, then these 14 millimeters are probably going to be where you'd lean. And I would like to say that it's interesting how the Gen 3 core sort of plays out in a 14 millimeter hybrid. So this is sort of a new thing. I think it's a great option because it's a great way to move to Gen 3, and that the trampoline is not as overt in a hybrid and in a 14 millimeter. So it kind of contains it a little bit. Less flex, I guess I'd say. The drawback, though, is they weigh less, and that means you often have to weight them. So they're really maneuverable, but sometimes not as stable in general. So something to think about. This one was pretty stable and very gritty, a thick layer of carbon fiber on the face. So I would say of all of these, and including the J2ti and the Vapor, all of these Gen 3s, if someone says they don't work in, they don't break in, that has not been my experience at all. So I would give this 4 to 6 hours at least. People will say it starts out stiff. It feels like a Gen 2 thermofoam. It doesn't feel like a actual Gen 3 with a floating core. It's definitely going to break in and feel that way if you play it for a little while. And it is a peninsula. I'll try to put up the x-ray. So there is a little bit of exponential, but it's not something that can't be controlled. In fact, static weight 7.94, so light and fast. Swing weight 119, twist weight 6.83. I don't add weight on this paddle to break it in. I did a little at the 4 and 8, but it just didn't feel necessary to me. So this is one I'd say if you wanted to try a power paddle or 14 millimeter Gen 3, it's only $150 and at Rev $135, which is a great price for a power paddle. I do want to say, when my playgroup first found out that the Mod was being delisted or sunsetted, we started playing around with paddles, and 6 of them immediately bought a Zeus. They just love this paddle so much as their Mod alternative, but I think it's a great Ripple alternative as well. Again, really light and fast in the hands, and an easy adjustment. It doesn't have quite the power of the Ripple, obviously, and nothing is going to, because that's why it was apparently not approved. So that's my first one. And while I was playing with it, I did get some moments of Olympus feel. So I wanted to come back and revisit the Olympus just quickly. If you haven't tried this paddle or hadn't heard about this paddle, it is special too. So I wanted to give it a quick mention. And it does, I used to think of this as a solely, 4 to 4.5 and above type player paddle, because it was a 14 millimeter and it's different. But now that I think about it, it does have an innovative use of foam. So it's one of the couple of paddles that I know of. The Nexus Pro Star is like this as well. It's this innovative use of foam-filled cells. So each individual cell is filled with foam, which makes it much more dense, gives it more plow-through for a 14. So they would say it has the stability, or feels more like a 16 millimeter, but it's in a faster 14 millimeter core, and it does have fiberglass and it's layup. So it's a little crisp at the beginning, but I did giggle because one of the guys said, his 68-year-old mother plays with the Olympus, and it's not just for upper level young guys, but it does, the Zeus reminded me of it, because if you're looking for a power paddle or a ripple replacement, this is a great Gen 2 thermoformed option because of those foam-filled cells. Swing weight of 114, twist weight of 6.69. I would add a little weight on this one. And it does, because of the foam-filled cells, it's a little different, and then because of the fiberglass, it takes a little getting used to. But it's one that I would definitely try. It comes in at $200, but you can get it at Spartus for $180 with the code DRPRICE. But it will be one that a lot of people I know just always have this in their bag, and it's predictable linear power. So I wanted to give it a mention as a possible alternative. So, okay, on to the ones that everyone's really excited about. If you haven't heard about this yet, it is worth the hype that everyone's discussing. It is the C45 from Franklin, and it is special in multiple ways, but in my mind, it is very Ripple-like in several different ways, particularly in maneuverability. But it does have the Gen 3 suspension core, and it is in a diving boards peninsula, but it does have some other special things. Its inner layer of foam is EVA, so that makes it sink in a little more, and it has the special, instead of 90-degree angled carbon fiber, it's got 45-degree angle carbon fiber, which allows for more give. So it pockets the ball better, and it's amazing for spin, for shaping the ball. So they've done some special things in the construction of this. And also, when worked in and weighted, there are moments where you're kind of like, ooh, this feels like the Ripple. So it's got a static weight of 7.6, so super light, swing weight of 111, mine came in, and twist weight of 6.31. But I would not at all play this one without weight. So I put a full, I think it's got 8 grams now. Maybe I'd tone it back to 6, but I'll just share my 8 grams setup. So when I did add 8 grams, it did go up to a 123 swing weight, but it doesn't feel that way. And it gave it a twist weight of 7.8. So it feels the touch, and it doesn't quite have that Hayden Patriquin when you're hearing the pros play with it, that thud, thunk sound, not at all. But so I don't know if they're playing with a different paddle. I would assume so. But it is for kitchen. If you love the Ripple for battles, hands battles at the kitchen and speed ups and counters, this is your paddle. Fast, maneuverable. If that sounds like your paddle, it would be worth, it's selling for $220, but with code, it would be $200. So DRPRICE at Franklin Pickleball. This would be worth trying just to see if it is your Ripple alternative. And then my hope, of course, is that Dong at Ronbus will be working on coming up with an updated Ripple that actually passes PB Core and becomes USAP approved. But we'll go on to those charts and the speed test. So as you can see, when looking at this power average chart, we're averaging 3 different databases: John Q, Braden's Pickleball Effect, and Matt's Pickleball. And I just wanted you to see how close. There's a couple things that stand out here. Obviously, the Ripple is considerably faster in terms of power, but look at the numbers on everything else. Considering there's human error here and differences in terms of static weight and swing weight of different paddles, and these people doing this testing, I use the Paddle Tech for reference. It's not really a hybrid, but it's an elongated with 56.7 miles per hour as the average. And note, the Hyper is a standard paddle. It's right below it, 56.6. And all of these others, 56, 55, you know, depending on the person who's playing and their swing speed and so forth, these are really negligible is what I'm trying to say. And the same is true for pop. So if you're trying to pick a paddle based on power or pop, at this point, looking at these paddles, and I do question that first one, the Zeus, because Matt is the only one who's tested it. So that's just his number. It's not averaged with John and Braden. So I think that's an outlier. But notice the Ripple 37.6, not that far off from these others, 36.9, 36.8. If we, you know, figured an error here, we would be saying these are virtually not at all different. So I wouldn't choose a paddle based on just the data in terms of pop averages or power averages either. I hope you found this helpful, and if so, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.